Hi, everybody. Welcome, 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 welcome. I'm Wendy Sachs. I'm a member of the board of Plant Powered Metro New York, and I'm very happy to welcome you to our monthly series, Cooking with Chef Carole, presented by Plant Powered Metro New York. Plant Powered Metro New York empowers people to achieve better health and overcome chronic disease through a whole food, plant-based approach to nutrition. We offer evidence-based education, resources, and a grassroots network of support to create community and inspire change. Together as leaders, organizers, and educators, we raise awareness about the dramatic health benefits of whole food plant-based nutrition. We empower individuals to make their own lifestyle adjustments, and we lead projects that spark changes in food policy, food practice, and food culture. So we are truly, from the bottom of our hearts, particularly all of us who volunteer, delighted that you're joining us today in this monthly cooking series with my dear friend, Chef Carole. Quick announcements. Anyone who's tuning in for the replay, welcome. Today's show is late summer delights, and in the farmers markets these days you'll find fresh herbs and more herbs, cucumbers, there's Swiss chard and kale you'll still see, and of course in the Northeast and various other places corn is out and about. I think it's going to be one of the ingredients today. And there's a bunch of other things just prolific still in the farmers market. So go support the farmers markets, choose organic to the best of your ability, and regenerative vegetables even better than organic. Guidelines, if you can, please let us know where you're from in the chat. It's always good to know where our reach is, as local or as far as it might be. Please ask questions in the chat. Carole usually allows time during the demo, and if not, we'll try to save a few minutes at the end to answer as many questions as we can. And if you're enjoying the presentation throughout or just at the beginning or at the end, please do press, sorry about that, like, either on YouTube or on Facebook, because all the likes do help us, I don't know, generate something with the show. So please, even if you're watching the replay. So again, a quick announcement from Plant Powered Metro. This Thursday, August 17th, we're hosting an Ethiopian dinner in Montclair, New Jersey. Spend a summer night out with friends while enjoying a delicious and vibrantly flavored meal at an Ethiopian place called Mesob Ethiopian Restaurant. It was voted the best of Montclair for 2023. And you can register if you're in the New Jersey area, New York, New Jersey, or just want to come. You can register at plantpoweredmetro.org online. And they need to know by now, 5 o'clock today. So if it's a little later, fine, but try to get your registration in. Also a reminder, usually Plant Powered Metro skips the month of August for programming. This year, we're skipping the month of September because there were so many conflicting dates. So that's why we're doing the cooking show today. We will skip September and we will resume on September 30th and October 1st with a live and virtual conference. Actually, we're joining with an organization called Peapod, and I'll talk about it a little bit more at the end of the show, but it is available virtually, and again, information's on the website. But we really encourage all of you to attend, and it's for medical professionals as well, so you'll hear top medical research on what's going on in the plant-based world, because they speak about how the future of medicine is in fact nutrition and plant-based nutrition. And then super important, Carole, for anyone who's in the Albuquerque, Taos, New Mexico area, is going to be live at the Red and Green Veg Fest in Albuquerque, New Mexico next Saturday. So that's next Saturday, August 19th from 10 until 5. And then finally, our next cooking show with Chef Carole is October 15th. So we're skipping September. All right. Well, we'll get on with the show. Fun facts for today. Cucumber is a nutritious fruit, not a vegetable. Nutritious fruit with a high water content. Eating cucumber may help lower blood sugar, prevent constipation, and support weight loss. And to maximize cucumber's health, eat the peel too. So with that little fun fact, here we go. Carole, what's on the menu today?
I have comments on everything you've just talked about, but crazily enough, I want to just say that I've been teaching myself how to cook Ethiopian food. So I'm actually quite excited that you all are having a little dinner in Queens, because the spices are so amazing for Ethiopian cooking that it just adds a whole new dimension. And especially when you're not cooking with any kind of salt or oil, and bringing up the flavors with those new kinds of spices are very exciting.
And
so maybe that's something that we'll have to do in the fall, is I'll teach some of the things that I've just recently taught myself.
Perfect. I'm interrupting just for a second because it's in New Jersey. Just so
New Jersey. I thought it was in Queens.
It's fine. And either way, please come. But yeah,
I always think Queens is like the biggest melting pot,
it is.
Along with Brooklyn, but so is New Jersey. So anyway, but we're not there today. We're not in Ethiopia. We're actually we're somewhat in Russia. We are a little bit in Russia, but I really want to really say that this soup is Ukraine and Belarus origins. People want to steal it and say that it's Russian, but a very good friend of mine, when I was in my garden, and maybe we should just show my garden now, and so because I've been talking about it so much, and I made a photograph so all of you could just see very much what I've been talking about for all summer long. I have 4 big raised bed boxes, and they have beets and carrots and scallions and carrots and Anaheim chilies and broccoli and cucumbers. And this year I expanded the garden more, and this is my 3rd season. So I've been very, very excited, because when you're growing your own food, it's just so rewarding. And so much of the food this year I started from seed. So I'm learning, I'm making mistakes, and I'm teaching myself, and I'm just inching along, and it's a very exciting thing for me. So I know you all have heard me talk about it all summer long. So as I was starting to pull the cucumbers and the radishes from my garden, a very good friend of mine who's been living in the Ukraine for the last 6 years said, "Carole, you must make okroshka." And I said, "What are you talking about?" And she goes, "Okroshka. It's a wonderful cold soup. The Ukrainians, eat it in the springtime. They also eat it in the summertime. And it's a cold soup. And of course, I'm very familiar with beet borscht, because that was kind of my people, was beet borscht, eating it cold or hot. This soup has a little bit of a flavor, if you're familiar with tzatziki, which is a Greek sauce made of yogurt and cucumbers and sometimes sour cream and dill. This has a similar flavor to that. And because it has the cucumbers, it's also very similar tasting a little bit like raita, which you use when you're eating Indian food to cool down all the spicy things that you're eating. But this is a cold soup, and we're going to have that, and we're going to start that in a few minutes. We're also making a chickpea crepes, which I have been making a lot of. Why do I want to bring you the recipe? Is because it can be savory or it can be sweet, and I really like that. A couple weeks ago, I made a lot of crepes and I turned them into blintzas for our Jewish community here. I also made a lot of crepes recently and turned them into manicotti. So I made like a ricotta cheese with spinach. So I made savory things. But to carry on our theme of summer, we have strawberries and blueberries and all these wonderful fruits. We're just going to make a crepe, and we're going to have chocolate and strawberries in it. And then I will tell you a story of why we're having street corn salad, but we'll get there when the time comes. So the very first thing that I just want to do is crepe batter. This particular one is not my recipe. It comes from a woman, her name is Michaela Cook, and she wrote a book, and I found this recipe, and it's just a perfect amount of every ingredient, and I really like it. So I thought showing it to you is good. Usually when you make a crepe batter, it's full of eggs and milk and butter, and the longer you let it sit and rest, it like develops, I don't know, it doesn't ferment or anything. It's just better for it to rest. So this recipe doesn't really talk about resting, but I like it to rest. So what we're going to do is we're going to get this mixed, and then later on we're going to come back to it, and we're just going to leave the batter on the counter. So we're going to start with 2 cups of chickpea flour, which is sometimes called garbanzo bean flour. And then we're going to add a half a cup of tapioca flour. Now, you might ask, hey, I have tapioca starch, but I don't have tapioca flour. In this particular instance, for tapioca, the starch and the flour are pretty much the same thing. It's just a marketing thing. That's not always the case when starch is the same as flour, but in this case it is. So I actually have a half a cup of tapioca flour that I've already measured out, okay? And then what we need is we need to have 2.5 cups of any kind of plant-based milk that you want. So what I do is I get a little whisk, which I have right here, and I just get all of the combine the chickpea flour along with the tapioca starch. And what does the flour starch do? It actually helps bind things. So this is because usually it's eggs and butter, right, that hold the crepe together. So between the chickpea flour and the tapioca, that's really what's going to help hold things together. And then I have some milk. I actually happen to have mostly soy milk today. I use a lot of almond milk. I try to buy the purest almond milk as possible. Any of those milks, it's good to read the package that it comes in, because some of them have quite a bit of additives in it so that they can stay on the shelf a long time. But there are a few brands that just use almonds and water. So this is some soy milk, and we actually need 2 cups and 2.5 cups actually. So what I'm going to do first is, because we could make this definitely in a blender, and you could put everything in all at one time if you were using a blender. But because I've decided to make this by hand so that we avoid the lumps, right? We don't want to have lumps in our crepes. What I do is I get it going with the 1 cup of milk, so that I don't just pour all the milk in at one time. And I'm just going to make sure that I'm reading correctly here. 2.5 cups. So then I start to add the second cup, and it's getting so thick it feels like I'm moving around cement. But eventually, and I'm whisking out. You can see that there you can't see it, but there are quite a number of lumps, not too many. But the more that I get this going, and again, doing it in the blender is just fine. I just wanted to show you that if you didn't have a blender, you could do it like this. And I'm going to get the rest of that's the second cup of milk in there. Now, I don't usually pour in all the milk when I'm making the crepes because sometimes there's a different, crepes are part of baking. And I've always say baking is very scientific, right? And it is. And so I always add a little bit of milk at a time to make sure that I'm not, because the weather conditions are always different, right? So when the weather conditions, sometimes there's a lot of moisture in the air. Where I live, it's very, very dry. So sometimes you need to add more milk. Sometimes you need to add more milk when you've cooked 10 crepes already. You just need to add a little bit more. So here's the last half a cup. And I'm just gonna put this milk aside for now. And we're gonna add that because right now it's a little too thick. And later when we come back to this, usually I just put a plate over the top, but we're gonna come back to it pretty soon. So I'm not gonna worry about necessarily covering it. And then in the chef notes, I say that if you're making a dessert crepe, you can actually add almond extract or orange extract or a little bit of vanilla just for some extra flavoring. And I have right here, I'm just gonna just add a very few drops. I'm gonna put my 2 fingers and I'm just gonna put a very few drops. And that's just gonna give the crepe a really nice almond taste, okay? And we're just gonna move all of this because we're actually done with those things. And then this is just gonna, and if I could just send smelling almond whenever I smell the almond extract. Do you use almond extract, Wendy, ever? It's so delicious. I don't know, maybe you disappeared. Wendy,
sorry, I was muted.
Do you use?
I use almond extract actually a lot, but I love that you're putting it in the crepes because I don't know, it somehow makes it a little French with a little almond in there.
Yeah, I like it. And the chickpea flour, just so you know, has a little bit of what do you call it? It has a chickpea flavor, but it won't so much once we start to cook it. And so I kind of think of vanilla or orange extract, any kind of, flavoring. You could put lemon or orange zest. So this is ready, and we're just going to let it sit, and we're going to come back to it at the very end of the class. Very, very end. We're not going to think about that right now at all. And we're going to move on. I don't think there could be any questions, but you never know. So
there are no questions, but a lot of people are commenting on the joy of Ethiopian food. In fact, you just had a mom saying Ethiopian food is very close to Indian food. And I know our dear friend Carole, who's not missed a show, has loved that we're doing Ethiopian. And somebody else had been to Ethiopia and said the food is deliciously spiced. Lots of vegan options, yum. So,
yes.
Oh wait, you're not making Ethiopian. Sorry.
But I'm not making Ethiopian. You all are going to go eat at a restaurant.
Right, you mentioned it. Okay, clearly the summer heat's getting to me, Carole. Sorry. But
it's okay.
We're back
it's okay, but I did talk about that in the future because I have been teaching myself Ethiopian cooking, that in the future we could have a whole Ethiopian show because they use a lot of beans and a lot of vegetables, and what is awesome is they use a million different kinds of spices. And so it is similar to Indian in that sense that yes, you can just have the classic curry or the one classic thing, but if you start to go a little bit deeper, you get into the more esoteric things.
And you do have one question, which is if we're doing savory, what would you add to the crepe batter?
Oh, nothing. I would just leave it as is. But if you want, I mean, you're welcome to put a little bit of oregano. It depends what you were making, right? But you could chop fresh herbs if you wanted. Any kind of fresh herbs, oregano, thyme, or if you had dried herbs, you could just put a teaspoon of mixed Italian herbs, crush them up in your hand, and put it into the crepe. But usually with the savory, you usually have some kind of sauce over it. Like if it was manicotti or something, you would have like a red sauce. So you might not see, and I maybe put that flavoring in the inside, So,
Beautiful. That's it.
okay, so let's move on. And, this soup, again, is not something that I've made a lot of times, but I have made it twice in the last few weeks. Why? Because I've been picking cucumber, picking radishes from my garden, and normally, like I said, this soup is eaten in the springtime when radishes and cucumbers are just coming out, but it is for certain a summer soup as well. And the we're going to start, and it's often when it's made in other not vegan way, it's made with kefir milk, and then they add sour cream to it as well. But what we're going to do is what I'm calling, we're going to make like a rich buttermilk. Basically, that's going to have a little bit of sour cream in it too. So let me just get started with that so that you see what's going on here. And I'm going to read to you everything that's going into the blender, okay? I have 60 grams of cashews, and the cashews are, what am I going to call about the cashews? I soak them since this morning. They just get creamier when you're making any kind of cashew cheese or anything with cashew. It just helps to have the, what do you call it? The soaking a longer period of time because it helps break down the nuts. So I chose cashew because it's nice and rich, and we're looking for something that's a creamy, yummy, rich yogurt based base of the soup. So we're going to put those cashews, 60 grams, which is about a half a cup, okay? A half a cup. And then we're going to add a cup and a half of plant-based milk. And I'm going to measure that out right now. And we're just going to get the same measuring cup that I just used. So we need a cup and a half. So that is a cup right there. And then we need a half. And then you're going to add other flavors to this to kind of make it into a buttermilk. The real key flavor to making any kind of milk into buttermilk is using something that's sour. And that sour would be some kind of vinegar or some kind of lemon juice. But we're going to add that at the very end. But easily, like when I make cornbread or I need any kind of buttermilk, I would put maybe about a tablespoon of apple cider vinegar or regular vinegar or lemon juice. And that milk, a tablespoon to 1 cup of milk, will give you, it will start to thicken the milk, sour the milk, and sometimes make it curdle a little bit, but it doesn't, it's okay if it curdles. So thus far, we have our cashews in our milk, and then we're going to add 2 teaspoons of Dijon mustard. And I'm just going to get a measuring device here. This actually is stone ground mustard. The recipe calls for Dijon mustard. You can use any kind. The reason I really like this stone ground mustard is it actually has no salt in it. And I just see that I grabbed a half a teaspoon. So I'm just going to do this 4 times. So we need 2 teaspoons of, and this is by Westbury. It's called Organic Stone Ground Mustard. And it actually has no salt. And that's actually a really cool thing. If you can, we talk about this a lot, is, if you need to salt your food, you salt your food after you make it. But if the things you bring home, the cans of tomatoes, or the vegetable broth that you buy in a box, or anything that is already, packaged, if you can bring beans, if you can bring home the no salt, and that gives you a kind of almost an even playing field of starting with something that's not sodium based. We're going to put 2 teaspoons of nutritional yeast. As some of you might know, this is not the baker's yeast. This is nutritional yeast. I just recently talked about nutritional yeast in our last class when we made the eggplant meatballs. And I buy this brand called Sorry Foods, and it's nutritional yeast. It's 100% non-fortified, and it's a very good yeast, but we only need 2 teaspoons. Okay, that's just a little bit. And then we need to mix all this up in the blender. Okay, so, oh, and we need our yogurt, and I have that in right here. And the yogurt that I like is, I'm picking a rich yogurt, not an almond. Almond can be rich too, but I bought a small container of this Forager probiotic cashew milk yogurt. And it's 5 ounces. I'm not going to even bother to measure it. It will give us a little, just like a heaping cup, half a cup, and we need a half a cup. So it will give us just the right amount. And so we're just going to take it right out of here. But you technically need a half a cup. And that's going to go in here. And again, we have a few actual cashews. And we're using this unsweetened plain cashew milk. And this is going to be the base of our soup. Really simple and delicious, right? I think so. Let me just get rid of some of these things out of our way. And we're going to just blend this up. It will just take 2 seconds to get it all blended. And it's going to be noisy, so I'm not going to speak. And let's get this started here. Now this soup is ideally cold. You want to eat it and serve it cold. Sometimes I've read that people actually put an ice cube in the soup. If they've just made it and they want to eat it right away, they just put an ice cube. I have been known when I make a cold soup and I'm in a hurry to serve it, I've put it in the freezer for a number of minutes just to get it chilled. But we are going to, so this is just all liquid. I'm going to give it a little bit of a taste right now. It doesn't have quite a much taste. It just tastes very yummy. Just tastes delicious. I don't know how to explain it to you other than it being delicious. And I'm going to get a bowl here and we're going to pour this in. Because right now, this is a base for the soup, but it's not sour. And it really needs to be sour. That part is really important. So we're either gonna, you can, like I said earlier, to sour anything, to turn it into like what I call a buttermilk, you would use vinegar or lemon juice. Today we're gonna use some lemon juice. I've used apple cider vinegar and it works perfectly. We need to have almost 2, I'm just looking to make sure I remember right, 2 to 3 tablespoons of the lemon juice. So we're just going to add that right now. We're going to put 2. I'm going to put 2. Maybe I'll do 3. I'll come back to do the third because I know that it needs a third, but I'll come back for sure. And let's just get that kind of mixed up. And at this point now, you could just put this liquid into a quart jar and just put that in the refrigerator. And then you would serve it in the bowls. And I'll tell you 2 ways of doing this, okay? I wrote it up one particular way, but I want to tell you the way that I've made the soup a couple times now. Because I'm just one person, I like just having it all mixed up, all ready to go. And so I'm going to tell you how I've been doing it. So often the way that they'll do it is this is very similar to gazpacho, where you want to have a lot of the ingredients already in the soup, but you also want to have a lot of ingredients for the top of the soup because the garnishing of the soup is very, makes it look good and it kind of tells you what's inside of the soup. Okay, so we are going to start to add those things to the soup. Now, in the directions, I actually wrote it up how most of these Okroshka recipes are written, where they get a bowl, they get a couple of serving bowls, and they put some cucumbers, they put some radishes, they put some potatoes. In a meat-based world, they put actually some ham in it or some kind of meat, but they put all the vegetables into the bowl, and then they pour the liquid on top, and then they garnish the soup. But I again, because I've been making this on my own a couple times, I like making just a big, like a pot of soup. It would be like a pot of soup, only it's not on the burner. So I'm going to just start adding things. So what I did was I have some cucumbers and I cut and I peeled them first. If they didn't have big seeds, they didn't have big seeds. But if they have big seeds, scoop out those big seeds and just cut them so that they're small diced. They're about, I would say, a 1/4 inch size. And I'm going to put, and we could measure this just so you see how much it is. But I say actually that you need 2 small cucumbers. And that is what I did. So here's 1 cup, just so you see the amount. And I think it's going to be 2 cups. 2 cups. Now, every cucumber is a little different size, so you might end up with 1.5 cups. But those are the cucumbers. They're going into the soup. Now, the part that I love in the soup so much are the potatoes. And I cook the potatoes in advance. And how did I cook those potatoes? These are Yukon Gold potatoes. And I put them in a pot. And I covered it with water, probably 1 inch of water on the top, and I just boiled them. Now, sometimes you can, when you're boiling potatoes, you actually can cut them so that they cook faster in the boiling water. But I love cooking these whole with the skin on because the potato kind of stays, it doesn't get waterlogged, and it's just so, I don't know, I can't explain how the texture is, but they're not waterlogged, and I cook them with the peel on. Okay, and so what I did was after they cooked and I could insert a knife or a fork into them and they were done, I poured the water out and then I cooled them immediately in the refrigerator. And as soon as I could peel them with my fingers, I didn't need a peeler, I just took their skins off. Okay, so does that all seem straightforward? I just saved a little bit of time. And see, they're not waterlogged, you see, and they're really creamy, and I'm cutting them into big, like 1/2 inch diced. And I can't tell you, when I eat the potato in the soup, it is so heavenly. I really like a lot of potatoes in it. And I say that you need to have how many potatoes? I don't even see how many potatoes. Plain base, vinegar, 3 to 4 Yukon Gold. But again, sometimes they're small, sometimes they're big. So it's going to be up to you. Everything that I'm making today has a recipe, but it also has a lot of leeway to do what you want, right? So if you don't like a lot of radishes, you won't use a lot of radishes. And I'm just cutting these potatoes, and we're going to get them in there, and then we're going to add the radishes. And what were you telling me something special about radishes earlier, Wendy? I don't remember.
I was just saying that I did not look this up in Dr. Furman's book, and it may be an old wives' tale, but growing up, they always told us that radishes were particularly good for preventing colds, or if you had a cold, it helped you heal from a cold easier, but more as a prevention to eat radishes, and yeah, that they're used particularly for health prevention.
I love that because I love radishes so much, and I usually buy them at the store, and I get them home and I cut their tops off. I throw away their tops to compost or in the garbage, whatever, and then I let them sit in water till I'm ready to eat them. That's usually what I do. But this year I planted a lot of radishes. So I've been eating radishes for like so many weeks now. And I've even replanted the radishes, thinking that I have a little more time before winter comes, that I'll get another bunch of radishes. So during this time, when I've been consuming so many radishes, I read and never knew that you can eat the tops. The tops. So here today is what I picked. I just want to show you. These are the tops. They've been sitting on my counter now for a little bit of time. But if I I'm going to cut them off their stems, and I'm just going to rinse them in cold water. It will pretty much bring them back to life. They look wilted and dead now, but they were very beautiful this morning. They just look dead because I've taken off their radishes and they've been sitting out in the heat here. But then you just saute them.
Hold them a little closer to the camera. Yeah. Oh,
So
beautiful.
you just saute them. That's all you need to do is saute them, and they're really delicious in miso soup. I recently discovered. I just learned, a Korean friend of mine just said, have you tried your, because I've been sharing radishes with everyone because I have way too many. And she said, you know, she was the one that told me to put them in my miso soup. And then I read about them, and it says saute them like you would spinach or kale. So I have been eating them, and they're quite delicious.
Online, Carol writes, she uses radish greens in her smoothies.
Oh my God, are they spicy, Carol? Could you just respond to that and say, yes, it's spicy, or no, it's just green, extra greens in it? That's awesome idea. I have so many that I need to do that. Thank you, Carol. Thank you so much. She'll write back and tell us what it tastes like, you know?
Yep, she'll write back. I haven't gotten an answer yet.
I love that, though. I love that. What a great idea. You see, I'm not the only one with ideas. Other people have ideas. So now we're going to put the radishes in. I've sliced up. This is what the radishes look like when they came out of the garden. There are all sorts of kinds of radishes. There are round ones, white ones, red ones. These are more like what they call breakfast radishes because they're long and skinny. Sometimes they're called French radishes. I sliced up a bunch, very paper thin, and I'm just going to throw them in the soup, but we need to save a few for garnishing. I did save a few, so we could put all these. Now, if you're someone that bites into a radish like this, and you say, oh my God, it's spicy, let it get into the soup then, okay? Don't be afraid to make the soup. Why? Because once it starts to soak in the soup, that flavor kind of absorbs and gets milder in the soup, okay? Now you see how I've just added all these vegetables, and it's not a scientific amount. It's more like when you're making, just like you're making a pot of soup, you say, okay, that looks like about the right amount of carrots. That looks like about a right amount of everything. And I think that's good. Now, where does our extra flavoring come from? It comes from the fresh dill. You have to have fresh dill. It's a must, must, must. And you must have parsley, okay? And I noticed that somehow when the recipes got reformatted, the scallions are missing on this recipe. So you need to have lots of scallions, which I have somewhere. And these are the cut scallions. And I have these also from the garden. But these are the scallions you want to use. We're going to use them in the street corn today. And we're also going to use them in this salad. And what I've been doing lately, because I have the garden, and you can actually do this at home if you have an apartment in New York, is if you take the root off, because you do have to take the root off, and you save a little bit of the wet part, and you put these in water. If you live in an apartment, I used to do this in New York, I would put them in a glass jar, and in a couple weeks, you'll get the rest of it will grow back, looking just like this. Now, what I've been doing is I've been taking these and putting them in the dirt out in the raised beds, and I have scallions growing in all the boxes, and they're just growing tall. And I've just been cutting off the tops, not pulling out the whole scallion because the tops are so delicious. So I actually have a whole bowl here that I've been saving. So we're going to cut a lot of dill. We need 3 to 4 teaspoons of dill. We're going to need some for the top. So I'm going to save a little bit right here. We need lots of scallions. When don't you make a soup that's going to have onions in it? And we need the scallions. So I would say 2 to 3 scallions, and you're going to need some for decorating. So I saved some cucumber for the top, and you'll see how we dress it. And maybe what we'll do is we'll let the soup actually get cold in the fridge, and we'll decorate it at the very, very, very end. Okay, so we're putting lots and lots of dill. Okay, lots of dill, and I have some parsley. And it says we need about a quarter cup. Again, this is up to you. I'm just gonna pull some of this here. This is gonna be about a quarter cup. I'm not a person that measures every single thing. And you all are lucky sometimes that the recipe gets written up, because I'm not a person that likes measuring. I do almost everything by eye. These little stems are going to go into my bowl for composting. That's something else that I love in my yard, Wendy. Remember, we were always Are you still composting, Wendy?
I am composting. In fact, my whole building in New York is composting, and Eric Adams has been, I believe, doing more work in the city to encourage composting. So the city is really trying to encourage plenty seeding, composting, anything to help contribute to saving the environment and our health.
It's awesome, because right before the pandemic in New York, it was going to be mandated that every building have a brown garbage, and then the pandemic came, and then that all kind of went out the window, because that went out the window. And then it took the city a long time to get the programs back in place. So I guess it's been a significant enough amount of time.
And there are a lot of composting bins, not just at the farmer's market now, but you can sometimes just see them on the street corner. So they are trying to get more.
There used to be one in 79th and Broadway. There would be, like, when you were going down to the train, and there'd be a big gray box. It wasn't brown, it was gray, and they would just weekly take people's compost. Yeah. It was so awesome. And you remember when we would pick up the CSA at the B'nai Jeshurun, and they also would take compost.
Yeah, no, it's very big and very, very important. And it also saves money, I believe, if they do it right. By the way, I just want to let you know that Carole did answer your question. And yes, she likes spicy. So it doesn't taste actually spicy to her, but that's because also she likes spicy. But she also mentioned, and I know you're a huge fan of this, Carole, is that she uses beet greens and carrot tops in her smoothies too, and wastes nothing. And that's one of your phrases.
I love her so much already, and now I love her even more. So that's awesome. That's so awesome. I'm putting a little bit of black pepper right now in the soup. And we're not going to bring up any flavor here with any salt. So what I did was, when I made the lemon juice, I actually zested 2 lemons. And I'm actually going to put a little bit of lemon zest into the soup as a way of flavoring the soup. Now, it's got a lot of dill. It's got a lot of parsley, and I don't know if you can see this, Wendy. It's really hard to see because it's kind of a white on white soup. It's got white potatoes, and the cucumbers are green, but it's got a lot of parsley, a lot of dill, and we're gonna just put this away in the refrigerator for a few minutes, and we'll decorate it up when we're finishing up, okay? Perfect. So I'm just going to put this in the refrigerator for now, just like this, not even covered, because when I heat it, when we're done, I'm going to definitely, what am I going to do? I want it to be cold, because it tastes so much better cold. You can eat it right away, but I encourage you to make it as cold as possible, because that's the whole point of eating a cool soup, is to get yourself all freshened up. This is a good time, Wendy, for questions, if there were any about the soup.
No questions that I see about the soup, but Carole did mention that more and more communities are mandating composting, which is really good to know. I see it happening when I travel as well, which is just great.
I heard here recently, because most people here have their own farmland, and a lot of people here have their own property and make their own compost. But I did hear a guy the other day at our farmers market here in Dallas, and he said, I'm starting a pickup. So he's just going to go around and pick things up. Remember Mitch's movie, Wendy, that talked how they did it in Bloomington, and and they also were doing like pickup and just a pickup truck with buckets, and they were just going around to people's house and just picking up the waste.
Exactly. I
And
do remember.
it's so awesome, and I love it so much. It's so good for our planet and so good for our gardens, and it's just the right thing to do. So we are technically done with the soup until we garnish it and plate it. So we're going to move on to the very next thing. I'm going to put this just to the side because we're going to need those things for decoration. And we're going to move on, and I'm kind of clearing the way because the next thing we do is a little bit messy. And I want to tell you just a quick story of what inspired this salad for me. Is there's a young man, I want to say I don't know, it's hard to tell. He's in his 20s, maybe 30s, I don't know. He's a younger man. He has a stand on my street, on the main street here in Taos, and he grills corn. He's from the Pueblo, and he's out there on Saturdays and Sundays, 8 to 8. Like, he works a really long day, 12 hours, and all he does is he grills corn, and he slathers it with butter, and then he must have like 20 different kinds of spices in front of him, different kinds, New Mexican chili spice, chipotle spices, he has Parmesan, he has lots of kinds of salts, he has everything, and he has a long line of people waiting for his corn. And I went there one day with a friend, and she goes, "You've got to try this man's corn." And when I got up there to order my grilled corn, I saw that he was slathering butter on it. And I said, "Wait." I said, "I don't want any butter on it. I just want lime juice. And then I want the spices too." And he looked at me kind of like, "Really? Like that's," but he said, "Okay." So now every time I come up to his booth, he's like, "You're the one with just the lime juice." He knows. His name is River, like the stream. And what he does, and I love his technique, and that's why I left it in foil. So I bought this corn from him today, and I love it so because what he does is he has all this corn on the grill, and if you live somewhere where you can actually grill corn, fantastic. He keeps the husk on, and he just grills the corn, okay? And then he takes the husk off, and he puts it into a piece of foil. And normally he would slather paintbrush on all this butter. But for me, he just squeezes a half a lime juice. And then he sprinkles the New Mexican chili powder. Okay? And then what he does is he rotates it in the foil like this and gets all the chili caught in the crevices. And then he wraps it up, and then you take it home. So the first time I did it, I bought 2 things of corn home, and I was so excited, but I'm not one of those people, just so you know, that likes biting corn off the cob. I don't like the strings in my teeth, and I don't know. I just don't like it. So I'm the first person to get a knife always and take the corn actually off the cob. Now, I have done this for us in a small, what do you call it, small bites, when we were doing small bites. Wendy and I were doing that a while ago. And you can look up how to take corn, but here's going to be your little example. I have a very sharp knife, and I'm slowly making what you call planks. Planks means that instead of the kernel is coming off in like 1-inch pieces instead of individual. You can break up the corn. Some of it is going to be little individual corn kernels, but I am just taking it off the cob. Now, you could definitely do this. I never thought about it when I was living in New York. Not once did I think to buy the street corn from the vendors that sell it all, but I do know that this corn is so fresh. It's grown. He's from the Pueblo, and I really love it. And corn can be a little more expensive than you anticipate sometime. But the day that I came home to make this, eat this corn just like this, and I was going to just put it away like this in the fridge. But the day that I did it, I had a bunch of simple things in the refrigerator, and if you only knew, once it's cooked, It's super easy to take off the cob, okay? I am not struggling here. And this whole thing, this plain cob, when it's got all the kernels off, is gonna this whole thing is gonna go into the compost. So again, all that's on this corn is lime juice and New Mexican chili powder. You can use chipotle. And I gave you all several ways, almost 4 different ways of making this kind of corn if you didn't have a street vendor that was already making the corn. And if you didn't have your own grill outside to actually grill corn. You could roast it in the oven 400 degrees and put it on a sheet pan. And I would do the same technique where you could put a piece of foil or get a bowl, squeeze lime juice, and then make sure that you get the spices, meaning the New Mexican chili powder or the regular chili powder or the chipotle, whatever you want. But that is the goal, is to get the spice into all the crevices, because this particular salad is not going to have, it's not going to have a dressing. It's just going to have this lime juice and this spiced corn. And today, just so you know, we're not just, oops, I just got it on the counter. I did so good at not getting it all over. And then I go and spill this corn. Okay, so this corn is going into the bowl. And I want to show you that I also figured out, and I wrote this up, if you have a cast iron pan, I used our pan, Wendy, you know, the pot that we have, you and I, the same pot.
I love that pot. It's pretty much all I cook in.
Well, because that's all I cook in too, and it just lives on the stove and it never goes away because I don't have a place to put it. It just sits on the stove. I thought, you know, it's a cast iron inside. This is what I was thinking this afternoon. I don't really want to put the oven on, but I really want to cook this corn. And I don't have a cast iron lodge pan. So I put this, I did the corn. I put lime juice. I put it in a big bowl. I rolled the corn around in the bowl. And then I put the spice. And then I rubbed it in, and then I put the high flame, the gas flame under the pot, and then I got the tongs out, and I started cooking the corn, and look how great it looks. It looks just like his corn. It's all cooked. It was cooked within 5 minutes. It's not, there's no parts that are necessarily brown. I did add a little more lime juice to the bottom, and as it was kind of dry roasting in the pan, I thought that it needed a little bit of water. So I put a tiny bit of water, and this is, I'm going to see if it tastes good, because, well, it's probably as good as corn as his corn.
Carole, you know? I think you can start a whole new business, and it looks amazing. And I love that you made it in that Staub pot. How cool.
Well, I just wanted, you know, the ways that I've done it before when I really want roasted corn. Even I do this with Trader Joe's corn sometimes, the kind that's frozen. I just lay it flat on a sheet pan, and then I squeeze lime juice, and then I just cook it in the oven on a 400-degree oven. And it gets all kind of burnt and brown, and sometimes you actually hear the corn popping in the oven. But I just didn't feel like putting the oven on, and so that's why I did it in the skillet. And I wrote that up in the recipes, that is a choice. But, you know, of course, if you can get somebody to roast your corn for you, maybe you have a friend that has a grill, and you could just batch cook a bunch of corn and give you some, and you know, but I do like the corn to be in some plank shapes, and I like the corn to be in, it's also single kernels, okay? So the day that I made this recipe was when I took the corn, bought the corn for the very first time, and then I'm like, oh, that looks like it's demanding. You look at that bowl, and it looks like it needs to be a salad. And I'm so lazy sometimes about dressing. If it's not already in the fridge, I don't know. I just go ahead. So what I did, let's move this pot back to where it belongs. Okay, and we are going to add cherry tomatoes. About 1 cup. We need about 1 cup, and my measuring device is over here just to show you Now, I used a little more than 2 corns. It's up to you. Again, I'm kind of reiterating this like 15 times today. I've typed up the recipes. They're there, right? But there's leeway in how much, you want to add more tomatoes, add more tomatoes. Want to add less tomatoes, you want to put roasted red peppers in the salad, do that. It will be a great idea. Okay, so here's 1 cup. I have a little extra. I'm going to pour all of it because at the bottom of this bowl where I had the cherry tomatoes is just a little bit of juice, and that's going to be delicious also. Now, the last few times I've made this salad, I've always had white beans in the refrigerator. What does that mean? I've had cannellini beans, or last week when I made this salad, I had lima beans that were white beans. But today I have my Rancho Gordo beans, and these ones, I left myself the label so I remember what to tell you they are. They're called Jacob's Cattle, and they were red and white speckled, and they cooked up, and you don't see that they're speckled anymore. They just look brown, and they are similar to a pinto bean. So in the recipe, I say that you can use any kind of bean that you want. I think a black bean would be perfect, a pinto bean, a kidney bean, and I guess this bean in the little small print here says that it's very similar to a kidney bean, actually. Not similar to a pinto bean, but it's called Jacob's Cattle, and it's from Rancho Gordo. And I have a jar of them right here, and we're just going to scoop them out somehow. I'm not sure with what. We're going to get a spoon. And I say that we need about a can of, so if you're not going to make your own beans, I'm going to suggest that you need about 1.5 cups, okay? And that's exactly what 1 can is a cup, depending on the size of the bean, but most 15-ounce can of beans are 1.5 cups. Now, there is some water in here because I just cooked these beans this morning, so I'm just going to turn my hand upside down. I'm not even going to get the strainer. And these beans are, now I've never made this salad with dark beans. I've always had white beans, but it's okay. And then it says we need about 1.5 cups. So I'm just going to get another little bit. And I just had lima beans this past week in the salad, and it was so yummy. And to make sure there's no juice. Okay. Now, very, very much, I'm just going to leave this cutting board, has corn on it, has chili. I'm not even going to bother to wash it. It's okay. This salad now needs to be finished similarly to how we finished the soup, where you're adding a lot of fresh herbs, and it's the fresh herbs that are just going to make it just over the top, okay? So we need 3 to 4 scallions, and I've already cut those. And it seems like a lot, right? But I'm just going to put almost all of them, like leaving a little bit from the top. And then we need to have a lot of cilantro, 1/2 cup of cilantro. And I washed, my bunch of cilantro was so big today that I just look at it, just was so bountiful. I don't know, it's like sometimes I feel like they give you 2 bunches into one. Look at how much cilantro came in 1 bunch today. So I'm going to take a big handful of cilantro, and we're just going to chop this up. And this is going to be the salad. Now, some of you might say it's a little bit like a relish because it doesn't have any lettuces or salad, doesn't have a dressing. I'm going to cut the stems, and if you cut the stems with chopping the cilantro, they disappear, and it's okay to eat the stems. In fact, they're really good. And I'm just going to chop this. Now, I have to tell you, I really do like the white beans in the salad more because they stand out against the yellow corn. And the tomatoes that I recommended, I called them the medley of tomatoes. When you buy the cherry tomatoes in the store and you get yellow and you get orange. So you just want to make the salad as colorful as possible so that it's most appetizing. And as we talk about in our Food for Life classes, that we always eat the rainbow, right? Try to eat as many colors as possible. So all of this, it looks like a lot of cilantro, and it is a lot of cilantro, but all that cilantro is going to go into the salad now, okay? And I don't put anything else in the salad. This is literally it. No dressing, nothing. This is the salad, okay? And I'm trying not to over mix it. Why? Because I want some of the planks of corn to stay planks of corn, okay? And the beans are pretty in it. They don't, like I said, they don't stand out as much as the white beans do, but, and then I'm gonna taste this. I'm gonna taste the whole thing. I'm not just gonna taste the corn because the corn is delicious, right? And let's just get a proper spoon for me to taste this salad. And as I'm eating everything, I'm eating, oh my gosh. See, because you're biting, you're getting a tomato, you're getting the onion that's crunchy, you're getting the bean that's soft, and then you're getting that amazing corn that is already seasoned. Now, if you felt like it and you were just so possessed to add a little bit more flavor, you certainly could squeeze another half of lime onto the salad just to have more freshness, right? And bring up the flavor even more. But my corn is so delicious, and it was coated in lime and the spices. So I think it doesn't need anything. I think it's perfect as is, and we're just going to get it plated, and we're going to start to turn this little oven on here, and we're going to get this salad plated. Now, who wouldn't want to go to any dinner, whether you're serving dinner at your own house, you're bringing something for a potluck, you're going to a picnic. I recently packed a bunch of this up and just gave it to my neighbor, Wendy. I don't have the Wendy jar to send to you. But
remember those Wendy jars, but you have to know that looks so delicious. I think a couple of us are just wanting to jump through the screen as usual. It really looks unbelievably savory, and that lime just has one's mouth watering, and the colors, and it's just so perfect late summer salad.
It's a perfect summer salad, and again, I do encourage you to get, if you can, to have the grilled corn, you know, and honestly, don't let the grilled corn stop you, because you can do it in a pot on the stove, like I said, or you could do it in the oven. I put it last week, I put it on a sheet pan, and I just rolled it in the lime juice, put the sprinkles, and then I put it on really high heat. And then occasionally, every few minutes, I would rotate it so that one side wasn't getting just dark.
And did you add any water, like even a quarter teaspoon?
I didn't. I did add water when it was on top of the stove in the pot. It seemed to need water, and it just seemed like the pan was getting dry. So I added a little bit of water to the pan, like you would do for sauteing onions. When you think they're sticking, you added a little water, not drowning it in water, but just a little water. But for some reason, the oven is so hot at 450, 425. You're just using it as a broiler, basically, which is similar to a grill. And it's just going to brown your corn. And you have to be careful that you don't burn it if you're doing it in the oven. But it does work, and it gives you that same roasted flavor. And that's what you're looking for. You're looking for the lime and the roasted corn, and it's just heavenly.
Yeah, excellent.
Does anyone have questions? Because we have to finish the crepes and we have to plate the soup.
I don't see questions not about the corn. I see a comment that looks delectable, but I am going to go back because Bonnie did ask about the amount of plant-based milk in the cucumber dish, and I did answer it, Bonnie. 1.5 cups of plant-based milk and a half a cup of plant-based yogurt. So
that's right.
It is online. The recipes are in the chat. So if anyone is still asking about that, do refer to the recipe.
And Wendy, I did notice that somehow the scallions from the soup got admitted, but I think if we just remind everyone to add scallions, I think that it's fine.
Yep, I added it.
I'm not sure how they got admitted, but they did. They were there, but now they're not there when I looked at the final. So, but that's okay.
Yeah, it's good.
And we'll plate the soup in a few minutes, but let's get the crepes going. And I want, because I really want to show those too, okay? And we have to get rid of all this. We've got corn. When you take corn off the cob, it usually flies everywhere. I have to admit, there's not too much on the floor. That's good. And there's not too much on the counter. So you just have to give me like a minute here to just do what I call a wipe up. Because I'm always thinking, first of all, we're doing a dessert, and I usually get all the savory things out of the way when you're doing dessert. Oh, and this salad doesn't have garlic in it. And if you felt like putting garlic in, you can, but I just wanted to, this was a corn that came to me just because I wanted to take the corn off the cob. And I just used what I had because I was so hungry that day. And I'm like, this is a really good salad. This doesn't need anything. And sometimes you need that kind of salad that's just gonna, and I certainly would serve this salad on top of arugula or any kind of greens. It would be delicious. And it's just, and it could be delicious even on a baked potato. I would like it on that too. So we are gonna go back now and try to make these crepes and hope that I do them well, because crepes are a little bit of an art. And the crazy thing about these particular crepes is that I'm cooking them in front of you, which means that I'm not cooking them on a gas burner, which I have behind me. I have a gas burner behind me, but I want to cook them right in front of you. So I have an electric burner, and let's hope that I'm somewhat successful at this. I'm going to look at the batter. It's runny. That's a good sign. We'll see how it moves in the pan on the very first one. If it looks a little too thick, the first one is always kind of the one that is the test trial one. It's never going to be successful, okay? The first one is never successful. And you want a non-stick pan to make this in. I know many of you are going to ask me which kind of pan. There are lots of ceramic pans on the market now. I really love this Ozeri pan. It's the one I use the most. I have a 7 or 8 inch here. It's going to be big enough for the crepes that I want to make. They come in 10 and 11 inch. And then there's the green pan and the scan pan. But it really is helpful if you're not cooking with oil to have invest in a very good pan. It's just worth the investment ahead of time. And you'll see that you use it so much that you're just investing in your health. So we're going to see if this pan is hot. And I'm just going to put a few drops of water. It is definitely hot. The bubbles of water are making a noise, and they're sizzling and dancing across the surface. Now I have a 1 cup ladle, and I'm just going to make a couple crepes to kind of show you the technique. I personally like making, whether it's the manicotti or I'm making anything stuffed, I like making all the crepes first, because the crepes actually can stay in the refrigerator. So we're just going to tilt this pan like that and go all the way around. Now it does require a little bit of a technique, and if you've never done this before, you have to practice, okay? Your first ones might not be beautiful, but that's okay. The only way you're going to learn is to make them. Okay, now this crepe has got a bunch of holes in it already because it's cooking. You don't want it, it needs to be light brown. I see that it's a hair thick, just a hair. And I'm taking a spatula, and it's wanting to kind of stick. Now, normally when you cook crepes, if you were to go to a crepe store, crepe restaurant, they would be cooking it in a lot of butter that was rubbed all over the pan. But I'm not doing that. And I just want to turn it over for literally like 2 seconds, right? And we're going to make a couple of these, just a couple, so you see the technique. When you flip it over, it needs to be there for, I don't know, just like 90 seconds. And then you're just going to flip it over. Now, I think it's a little bit thick. I can see that. So I'm going to add just a little more milk because I feel that it's necessary. I want them to be thinner and I don't want them to be, it's okay for them to be thick, but you want them to be the right, almost, I would say almost paper thin, right? That's what you ideally want. And you can see this would still fold just fine. It's still very flexible. So we're going to fold them like that into quarters. And you could roll this. I did make blintzes with this batter. And like I said, I made some manicotti that was just to die for with this same batter. So it can be savory, can be sweet. So now this is runnier. It's going to move in the pan much easier. Now this looks way better. And we just added just a little bit of milk. And I know that it looks way better because of the way that it moved in the pan. Okay? And we're going to get a nice plate out from the crepes. But let's just make a few more together so you see the method. Because if I were standing with you in your kitchen, I would really teach you. You need a spatula, a rubber spatula, because sometimes it wants to stick to the side. But if you kind of go along and you just want to be able to lift it, because once you're able to lift the side, then the whole thing is going to come up, okay? The whole thing is going to come out like that, and then you're going to flip it over like that, okay? Now, I have on this, I've already sliced up my strawberries. I have a few blueberries, just a few. I think 2 is probably right for this serving. And you can take this out, and this one is way better. I like it upside down. And let's just make 1 or 2 more, and then we'll go and I'll show you the different ways of filling it, okay? Because I always try to figure out the best way to fill it. And because I'm the person that likes to make all the crepes and let them pile up, and you don't have to put paper between them, they'll all separate. And if you wanted to make these ahead of time, you could just cover them with plastic and put them in the refrigerator. And they would be delicious for a morning breakfast with some vegetables inside. I wouldn't put almond extract in the crepe, probably, if I did that, but this would be a great breakfast crepe. If you want to just have several in your refrigerator, okay? Now, the recipe, when it was written up by the woman that made the recipe, she makes the chocolate melt right on the crepe, right in the pan. So that's going to be one way that we're going to do it. But let me just, so again, I let this cook for just a very few seconds. We're going to serve these warm, and I flip it over. We'll make 1 more, and then we're going to put chocolate on top. And you're going to see how this is going to come together. And we're just shaking this pan, and we're going to get my this pan just back here. So in the back, I've actually have a little bowl over some, I have water in a little saucepan and a bowl on top, which I made a double boiler. And I melted a little chocolate ahead of time. And I put a little of the milk in the chocolate to make it so that it's runny. Because I like to kind of drizzle a little bit of chocolate on top just for decoration. But you certainly don't need to take that step. You can do just how she wrote the recipe, which is you're going to, let's move this. Now, I could do this for all morning or all afternoon. I love making crepes like this because it's so satisfying when you end up with a stack also very high. And these are delicious. So we don't want to cook that very much. And I'm just going to get some chocolate chips here and just put them on the bottom while the crepe is finishing, right? And it's going to start to melt those really quickly. It's melting. I'm using these Lily's dark chocolate baking chips. They do have a little bit of stevia, but they have no sugar added, and they're one of the least offensive chocolates that I've been able to find. Maybe you have a brand of your own. You could write it in the chat. I've been wanting to buy chocolate for a while now from the, what do you call it? The Santa Barbara Chocolate Company in California. They make some pure chocolate morsels that I have had, but I haven't bought. Now you see, we're just going to take the sliced strawberries, right? And we're just going to put a few in here, not too many. They're over the chocolate. I have a few blueberries, right? And we're just going to fold this in half. We're going to kind of mush it down so the chocolate leaks out. And we're going to fold it into quarters. Now this is ready to eat pretty much just like that. But if you were serving a dessert and making it also pretty for somebody, for a party or something, maybe you would want two. So and you could do the second one, but I'm going to do this one. And back here I have the chocolate melting. And all we have left to do is plate the soup. And let's just, I have this chocolate melting here. And it's all melted. It needs a little bit of milk. Just a teeny bit, not too much. Because I want to get it so that it's runny. So that it can drizzle. So I'm just adding the milk. And we're just going to add this. This bowl is hot. Yes, Wendy.
I'm interrupting just because there's a double checking online about definitely no oil in the nonstick ceramic pan or no water.
Nothing. Zero. And now I have to tell you, I have another ceramic pan, and I don't know that I would make crepes in it because it's a ceramic pan, but it is sometimes sticky. It is. So I've learned that this Ozeri pan is so good. It's like your green pan, Wendy.
Exactly.
That we usually don't have trouble with. You know, I have a ceramic pan that's supposed to be very good. It's made by Zwirling, which is supposed to be a good, technically a good one. But the fact is that I don't know I would use it for crepes because it sometimes sticks. It sticks. And I don't like that.
How do you spell Ozeri? Ozeri?
I believe it's Ozeri. Yes, Ozeri. And I got mine. I know you can get them at what is it? Not the Overstock, but the other one, the less inexpensive store. But just look for it. You can get them. I got mine at Bed Bath & Beyond, but none of us have Bed Bath & Beyond anymore because they're gone, right? So if you could just see that the chocolate is all melted, right? It's all melted, and I put a few blueberries, and you don't have to overdo it. And then I just fold it. If you overfill them, they're too big, and strawberries fall out. So here's two, right? Two. And then I have this runny chocolate that I melted, only because I kind of like decorating them. And I'm just going to remove that. And we have to get our soup, and then we're done, Wendy, right after that. But I like just taking this and giving it a little outside drizzle, just across the top. You don't have to. It just looks prettier, I think. And then I always wipe the plate a little bit. Let me get a little... Here, it's just got a little bit of chocolate where it doesn't need to have chocolate. And then I save a big strawberry, one whole big one here, which I like. I always like showing people what's in. Let me get a little cutting board from here and get a little knife. And I don't know if you know how to make the little fan. But you can take the green part off, right? Just cut that off. You can just chop that out. That doesn't belong in there. It belongs in the compost bin. And then you slice the strawberry, thin slices, but you just don't go all the way through to the cutting board. You're going down, but you're slicing, but you're not going through the strawberry. And then what yields here is a fan, right? You spread it out, and you've got a beautiful fan for decorating. And then you have a nice thing of mint here, and there is your dessert, right?
That looks just amazing.
And it's made with chickpea flour, so that's pretty awesome. And and like I said, I wanted to show you that because it's such a versatile batter that you can use it for sweet or savory crepes. And I think that's kind of a fun thing to have, is sweet or savory, is both delicious.
Exactly. Carol, I even remember, didn't we once make the chickpea crepes in lieu of an Indian bread for an Indian meal? I think
Yes, and
loaded with
I use the
cilantro.
I do that, but not so much crepes. That I call soca, which
Right.
is a little bit similar, but not similar, but not.
Sure.
It's a little bit thicker, and we can put onions and cumin and
And
cilantro.
celery, cilantro, I remember.
Yes, that's soca, and that's a different kind. This is more that crepe that you're thinking of is primarily chickpea and water, and this is really milk based and has, it's a real crepe. Is close to a real crepe as we're going to get without using eggs and butter and milk. So let's just get our soup. Let's just get our soup plated. And the soup is really thick and really cold, and I'm gonna dish it up right in here. I'm not even using a ladle. It's kind of thick. It looks delicious, cold, and I don't know, I'm gonna probably eat this myself afterwards. The rest of this I'm just gonna pour into a quart jar, and it's just gonna be here for me for tomorrow and the next day and the next day. But I seem to eat it pretty quickly, and I've been making it often. Now, we do need to have our little things to decorate. I have a whole cucumber here. We will get back our little clean cutting board here. And we're just going to, the top is important. It's just like when you make gazpacho. You never serve gazpacho without decorating the top, because you always want to tell the person, what is in my gazpacho? So, and I do that with watermelons, whatever kind of cold soup. So I'm slicing these very thin. These are beautiful cucumbers, just literally, see, Wendy, they come from a blossom. There's the flower right there. Wow. So it's so much fun. I just can't tell you, I'm just having the most fun with the garden. It's just, it's like a mystery to me, a world that I've never had, and I've just been really enjoying it so much.
By the way, just for those of you in the audience, when I met Carol, she was a complete city girl. City to city to city. So hearing how much she's enjoying her own garden is really a treat.
Well, the crazy thing is, I still tell people you can't take the city out of a girl, and I'm certainly learning how to be living in a rural place. But the fact, and I ask a lot of questions about the garden. I always, like you said, I've grown up in the city, and I never had the opportunity to have a garden. I would try to grow things in my windowsill, especially in New York. But if I just grew herbs, I felt like I was cutting the whole herb pot in one sitting. And it was super crazy, because it was crazy to just eat the whole pot. I needed a bunch of cilantro and the pot would be gone, or I needed mint and the pot would be gone. So it is a real treat to be able to have space and to be able to have this garden. I do say that I love it so much, and I don't know, I do miss the city, Wendy. I want you to know, don't think I've left you behind, the city. I love it, but it is nice. This is a part of me that I love so much, and I'm embracing it. And where did our little bit of dill go?
I only feel left behind, Carol, on Sunday nights after all your cooking, and I miss your meals.
Well, you're welcome to get on a plane, and I would save it for you for tomorrow, because I always have enough for, we're basically batch cooking for me, because we're on virtual camera here, and it's just, it's going to be, this is food for days now to come. So just want you to see, can you see the soup? So yes, I cut it, cucumbers, radishes, some scallions, some dill, and it's ready to serve just like that. And that really is the end of our demo today. And I hope that we've had a lot of summer cooking this summer, and it's nice to share it with everyone. And I look forward to fall just as much as I look forward to when we're bountiful with tomatoes and corn and fruit and all the wonderful things we've had all summer long. We have apples and apples and apples for the fall, and, and some pears
And
and
squash,
some
will start
beets.
coming in.
And you know what, and beets are definitely for the winter, and there's still there's never a time when there's not enough vegetables for us to have a whole food plant-based lifestyle. So
It's true.
and we have access to it all, whether you're growing it yourself or whether you're buying it in the store. And as Wendy mentioned, try to buy the organic if you can, but don't let that deter you if that is the only thing that is stopping you, that you can't afford organic fruits and vegetables. There are certain things. The environmental working group puts out a small list of 12 items that they recommend that you buy organic, and even I do know Wendy's refrigerator well. Not every single thing is organic, but we try to do that. And if you can buy from a farm direct that they're regenerative, that is our future, doing planting that way. And so
And
that's all I
also,
have to say. And maybe I'll see anybody that lives in the Southwest here, in Albuquerque next Saturday, when we have our cooking a demo, and I'll be sitting at a booth giving out some desserts.
perfect. I do want to say, since we brought it up, that strawberries, since you're cooking with them tonight, is one of those environmental working group. I can't remember. I think they
Dirty
call it
12 and the
the
clean
dirty
12.
dozen. The dirty
Yes.
dozen. And strawberries are highly sprayed with pesticides. So that is definitely one of them that you want to make sure always have organic strawberries. And again, if you're near a regenerative farmer, I put some links in the chat earlier about what regenerative farming is, but it's even more pure than organic. Organic's mostly available in the stores. And yeah, you can support your farmers markets too. So with that, we're actually going to close the show today. We're just have 3 minutes. So thank you everyone for coming. If you've liked the show, please put us a like in YouTube or Facebook. It's always good to see those. And a couple announcement highlights again this Thursday, as we started the show with, Ethiopian dinner in Montclair, New Jersey. So if you're anywhere close by, please join us this Thursday and register today if you can, or certainly as soon as possible, just so we can give the restaurant as many accuracy for reservations. Again, a reminder, we're going to be skipping programming. Plant Powered Metro will skip programming the month of September. We will resume with a plant-based prevention of disease conference. And this is co-sponsored with an organization called PPOD, and it's in Newark, New Jersey, but it's also virtual. So you can find a lot more information about it. There will be incredible speakers. Michelle McMacken, who's the head of now of Eric Adams initiatives in the New York City Hospitals, Health and Hospitals Association, to have vegan meals as the default choice. In fact, the first 2 meals when you're in a New York City hospital now are vegan. And then if you want to choose something that has animal flesh in it, then you have to actually work a little harder to make those choices. So that's one of the main initiatives that Eric Adams has already put forth in the plant-based world. It's really quite amazing. And then Michelle McMacken is running a lot of the programs for the New York City hospitals now. And so she's going to be speaking. And then we also have Robert Osfeld from Montefiore Medical Center, who's a cardiologist. One of our own, Gia Merlot, who's a plant-based nurse in the field of psychiatry, and also a board member for Plant Powered Metro New York, and Liana Levine, who's our Plant Powered Metro New York network director and who founded the organization with Lynn Diamond. And they'll all be speaking alongside Rachel Atchison from the office of the mayor's office, Eric Adams' office. So it should be a super exciting conference. Tune in at any point. It's Saturday and Sunday, September 30th and October 1st, and it's available virtually. So go to the website. And then finally, as Carole mentioned, she will be at the Red and Green Veg Fest in Albuquerque, New Mexico, at the Marriott Pyramid, or Pyramid Marriott, whichever way you say it, August 19th. And that event is from 10 and 5. And you can meet her in person. And by all means, I know she would say this, please introduce yourself. So all of links to everything I've just said is on, except Carole's Veg Fest, is on Plant Powered Metro New York website. And hopefully Rob, who's behind the scenes, is going to put that in the chat. And then Carole can be reached at Carole at thevegievanguard.com. On Instagram, please follow her. It's at the Veggie Vanguard. And then for those of you who are able, we do all of our programming or most of our programming for free. So those who would like, please make a donation to Plant Powered Metro New York so we can keep doing our best work in communities. And finally, our next demo with Carole is October 15th. It's a Sunday at 5 o'clock. So I think that's us. You can connect with us on Facebook. You can connect with Plant Powered Metro on Instagram and Twitter. And we have our website, of course, which is the best place to register. So a warm thank you again to our tech co-host behind the scenes. Robert Klein is here working with us. He's also a member and volunteer with Plant Powered Metro, and he's here for the first time. So thank you very much, Robert. And Carole, as always, magnificent. And you're getting lots of comments. Magnificent show. So thank you, everybody. Carole, any last words?
No, I'm actually really good, and enjoy September, and Happy New Year to those of you that are of the faith of the new year in September, and we will see you in October when we'll be in a totally different season. And what I might be telling you is that I have so many tomatoes and so many foods, and I'll tell you that I've hopefully canned most of everything to sustain me for the winter. So I'm very excited about the garden. Thank you for showing the photo, Rob, for making that work. And Wendy, thank you. I know you're out of town, and thank you for being here. And we'll see you in October. Thank you all for coming.
October. Thank you for coming, everyone. Bye. Happy cooking.
Happy cooking for sure.